Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the 28th chapter of Job. But before we do that, we just want to establish the narrative context in which it emerges. The book of Job begins with a challenge that Satan offers to Yahweh when Satan is scouring the earth and pointing with pride to the wayward condition of fallen humanity. Yahweh points out to his servant Job, who was prosperous and righteous, and this Satan accuses Job of having a commercial form of worship, and he said that if he would take away all his earthly blessings, he would curse him to his face. This is a challenge that Yahweh accepts, unbeknownst to the main the human protagonist in this book. Yahweh is in every sense the protagonist of the Old Testament. But the third chapter through the 25th establishes the dialogue momentum. So Job is accompanied by three comforters who aren't quite worthy of the appellation, but in any sense they do try to assist him in making sense of his suffering. And the 25th chapter is one of these comforters, Bildad. He gives a short, terse argument of six short verses, and after which Job responds in the 26th verse, and then in the 27th through the 31st marks his final speech, after which point we'll get to the juxt of that after, but then a younger man named Elihu enters in and gives a long diatribe in the 32nd through 37th verse, after which Yahweh dramatically intervenes and doesn't answer every question, but questions Job's ability to know his ways and for his purposes. But the juxt of Job's final speech, which spans the range of the 27th through the 31st verse, mostly consist of him insisting on his innocence and protesting the injustice which was inflicted on him. But the 28th verse speaks much of wisdom, and it is categorized as in the genre of Old Testament wisdom literature. If the goal of propaganda is to do people's thinking for them, then wisdom literature stands on the opposite and more exalted end of the spectrum. So the verses close the chapter, but not the books. They inspire a wellspring of thoughts, independent inquiry to the studious and diligent student, which I'm going to share with you, and hopefully you can stimulate some of your own. So the opening verse reads, this is Job speaking. Indeed, there is a mine for silver, and a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, and copper is smelted from ore. An end to darkness he has appointed, and to every limit he is searching, to rocks in deepest darkness. Now, the he is Elohim, as indicated by the capital H in this translation. But he points with the nature of the created order and the treasures which men esteem and exhaust themselves and put their lives at risk to attain. And this establishes the momentum for the invisible and elusive and priceless commodity of wisdom. He opens a shaft far away from people. They are forgotten by feet. They hang far away from men. They swing to and fro. Earth, out of which grows food, is turned underneath as by fire. So as the creator and controller of the cosmos, the earth, indeed the entire universe, is subjected to his whims. He can do with it in a moment in time, and even less than that, a fraction of a second, or even literally instantaneously. He can subsume it, destroy it, rebuild it, revitalize it. He can do anything he wants. So Job is mindful of the fact that he is at the mercy of a superior, higher power whose justice he questions at this moment of time, an entirely understandable predicament, as he was walking on the straight and narrow, and he had prospered, but he had prospered honestly, and to lose all of his life, his health, his family in a span of a single day is literally incomprehensible, or at least unrelatable to any other person who's ever lived. Its stones are the place of sapphires, and it has dust of gold. No bird of prey knows the path, nor has the hawk's eye seen it. So it's not that the birds or the hawks are incapable of seeing it. It's just that from animals who are exclusively oriented to their survival, the precious items which man treasures are utilitarianly useless for their survival, but man existing on a more complex plane of survival of the fittest, naturally the items of wealth certainly come to play in our own pecking order on the top of the food chain. The proud beast have not trodden it, nor has the fierce lion passed over it. He puts his hand on the flint. He shall overturn the mountains at the roots. So once again, he's reminding his audience and posterity by connection that the earth and the cosmos remain under the control. They are instantly manipulable and subject to any species of change from the unchanging one, who is capable of authoring change in the created order. He cuts out channels in the rocks, and his eyes see all that is precious. This is a combination of his omnipresence. He is capable of being literally everywhere at once or anywhere he wants to be. This ought not be interpreted to the extreme of the erroneous conception of pantheism, whereby there is no distinction between any created item and divinity. It is only to say that he is his omnipresence combined with his omniscience, that is the quality of infinite or unlimited knowledge, overlap in this specific reference. He dams up the sources of the rivers, and he brings to light what is hidden. This reminds us of Luke 12:2. All that is hidden shall be manifest and brought to light. This is both at the judgment and more immediately refers to revelation, which is an item of spiritually significant information which is impossible to arrive at via independent inquiry and is dependent on an external source. That external source just so happens to be omniscient, so he does give us what we need to know in proportion to what we are able to responsibly handle. And wisdom, where is it found? And where is the place of understanding? Now, wisdom being invisible and elusive and also beyond any measure of price or anything of that sort is somewhat more mysterious in its point of origin. Of course, we know that it originates from the intelligent being who created the order, including intelligent and unintelligent life alike. But from a earthly lens, there is no origin or spring from which wisdom derives. Man does not know its value, and it is not found in the land of the living, so it seemingly escapes and eludes all men, even though they would benefit from it most. We are capable of being wisdom, or at least reflecting the perfect wisdom of his omniscience in what limited ways we can. This is the wisdom he radiates, and he, being endowed in his image, entails certain rational capacities and spiritual capabilities, but sadly, by law of nature, the majority of the human race, and by connection, the human race itself, is stupid and defined by stupid errors, and we repeat the same cycles throughout human history. And as the old adage goes, the one thing we learn from history is that we fail to learn from history. The deep has said, "It is not in me," and the sea has said, "It is not with me." So this categorically excludes the abyss and all the deep dimensions of the sea. It is not to be found there. Wisdom comes from above, not below, and it doesn't come from the physical heavens, but from the spiritual heavens from which it emanates. Gold is not given for it, nor is silver weighed out as its price. This reminds us of Proverbs 23:23, where Solomon advises his son, and by connection posterity, to buy the truth and sell it not. So wisdom is a truly priceless and precious commodity. Now, to be clear, one cannot literally sell wisdom, but they can certainly exchange it and forsake it. Once arriving at certain foundations of intelligence, we have to keep the momentum going in order. So intellectual inertia is an impossible balancing act. We must either be growing or improving. But the omniscient one is literally incapable of learning because he already knows everything there is to know in advance of its occurrence, and he makes it occur. It is not valued in the gold of Ophir. It's precious in precious sapphire. So once more he reiterates the inferiority of earthly treasures compared to the priceless and precious commodity of wisdom, which the value of which is beyond measure of any earthly criteria. So we do assess the earthly items and resources by measure of monetary standards. Job was living in a pre-monetary society. Money coinage would not be invented till the Lydians in circa 612 BM, before Messiah, but the ancients did have value systems according to which bartered certain measurements of gold was certainly function in the capacity of money before there was money. It was deemed to be the absolute standard according to which anything else paled in comparison to. So an ounce of gold could buy you several pounds, hundreds of pounds of virtually any other item. Gold or crystal are not to be compared with it, nor is it exchanged for a vessel of fine gold. Now, what we do exchange, as I earlier mentioned, we cannot literally sell wisdom, but we can exchange it for nothing of, if we value the material trappings of this world, then we succumb to its snares, which ultimately leads to intellectual inertia and decay and degeneration. But it can be exchanged for stupidity. You're either moving forward or you're retrogressing. No mention is made of coral or crystal, for the price of wisdom is above rubies. So for the several time in this passage, he is exalting the price of wisdom as something priceless, because rubies would have been a precious stone, which may or may not have been more valuable than gold in certain cases, depending on the quality of the gold and the rubies. But it transcends that earthly value in mathematical measurement. And wisdom, from where does it come? And where is the place of understanding? So wisdom is closely connected to understanding. Understanding is the foundation of wisdom, through which we can assess information and piece it together. So if understanding is the ability to deconstruct the puzzle, then wisdom is the ability to put it back together, figuratively speaking. And of course, it has no earthly source or origin. It comes from above, once more, from the omniscient one, through whom intelligent life, and indeed unintelligent life, derives. It has been hidden from the eyes of all living and concealed from the birds of the heavens. So the birds are unintelligent creatures, although parrots are highly intelligent, at least as far as the animal kingdom concerned. But no intelligent life exists in the animal kingdom, excepting humanity. We have moral and rational capacities, whereas animals are oriented to their own survival. They never kill for the sake of sadistic murdering or for money or anything along those lines. They always and only kill because their very life depends upon it. But seemingly it eludes all the birds and man alike, so that just shows how elusive an entity it truly is. Destruction and death have said, with our ears we have heard a report of it. Elohim has understood its way, and he has known its place. So after exhausting the span, all the depths, the dimensions of the sea, the animals, and humanity itself, he recognizes finally what I implied earlier, that wisdom originates and springs from Elohim. For he looks to the ends of the earth, sees all under the heavens. So once more, the connective overlap between his omniscience and his omnipresence is once more alluded to. He is literally, nothing escapes him. He sees all that there is to see. He knows all that there is to know, and that's that, and there's no way around it, and there's nothing any of us can do to change that. Ergo, we must align ourselves to the fact that even our most secret sins remain invisible to him. So we can fool the world, but we can never hope to fool our Maker. For making a weight for the wind and measuring out the waters by measure, when he made a law for the rain and a way for the lightning of thunder. So the creative order demands an intelligent creator. The existence of creation implies that there was a creative, intelligent force who was wise enough to implement a plan and powerful enough to execute it. So the laws of nature, including the rain and the other elements of the sky, are subjected to laws as established, the laws of physics, which also owe their origin to Elohim. And we must divest ourselves of the artificial modern discrepancy between science and theology. Science often is inclined to make claims outside of its narrow jurisdiction of epistemological terrain, but there is no conflict between the laws of nature and laws of physics and the laws of theology, which are both created, controlled, and determined by Elohim. Then he saw wisdom and declared it. He prepared it and also searched it out. And he said to man, see, the fear of Yahweh, that is wisdom, and to turn from evil is understanding. Now, the fear of Yahweh being the root of, or the foundation of wisdom, is established in Proverbs 1:7, 9:10, in several places throughout there, and also in several other locations, I believe Psalm 111 and 10. So that theme proliferates throughout the Old Testament wisdom literature. Some of the Psalms are categorized as wisdom Psalms. But understanding, to turn from evil. So wisdom is not necessarily or exclusively the ability to assess and analyze information. It also entails a moral component. So he who is wise will turn away from evil because they know that evil is harmful and detrimental, and its boundaries are determined by the same omniscient one who is perfectly moral, and he erects them for our good. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.